Usual. You'll love what's being served up to the most extraordinary diners in the natural world. We're counting down the top 10 most extreme eaters in the animal kingdom and comparing them to the unusual treats that some humans dare to eat. You could bite off more than you can chew when eating is taken to the most extreme.
Earth is a planet of extremes. Extreme places. And extreme animals. But some animals are more extreme than others. Join us as we count down to find the most unusual and the most extraordinary on Animal Planet's The Most Extreme. Number 10.
The next time someone tells you to eat your greens because they're good for you, remind them that a diet of leaves can be deadly. Plants don't want animals stealing their leaves, so trees defend themselves from attack by pumping their leaves full of bitter chemicals. And they certainly don't leave calories lying about unprotected in leaves for animals to steal. So if you want to live on nothing but leaves, you can either eat massive amounts to get enough energy to survive, or you eat less and use less energy. And nothing uses less energy than the sloth. The sloth kicks off our countdown of extreme eaters because it eats nothing but leaves from the forests of Central and South America. It's an extremely low-energy diet, but then the sloth doesn't need much energy to survive. A sloth has half as many muscles as most creatures its size. Why waste energy on muscles when you spend most of the day just hanging upside down from your fingernails? A sloth doesn't waste energy looking for food either. It only eats leaves from a very small number of tree species, which makes it a very fussy eater, unlike humans. Right from the days of our earliest ancestors, humans have been omnivores. Dinosaurs may not have been on the menu, but we've tried eating just about everything else. Strangely enough, humans don't instinctively know what to eat. The two things that we have in common are that most people favor sweet things and dislike anything bitter. Everything else about our diet is picked up from the eating habits of the people around us. That's one reason why some cultures prefer rice over bread. In China, every year the average person eats almost 8 times as much rice as the average American. Other cultures eat things Americans see as garden pests. These are Mopani worms. In parts of Africa, these caterpillars are harvested, dried, and enjoyed as crunchy fast food. Caterpillars may not be everybody's idea of a happy meal, but thanks to globalization, our Western diet has changed. We can now choose to eat food from nearly any part of the world. But there's a man in England who doesn't care what he eats, just as long as he eats it fast. Peter Dowdeswell has almost 300 world records under his belt. He's a speed eater who can devour a 3-course meal in just 45 seconds.
I hold the world record for eating sushi, mashed potatoes, grapes, pancakes, hard-boiled eggs, raw eggs, soft-boiled eggs, fried eggs, pancakes, hot dogs, hamburgers.
He also loves a quick drink, even if it is upside down. Unlike Peter, the sloth will never break any records for speed eating. Thanks to its extreme diet, the sloth is undoubtedly the laziest eater in the countdown.
Number 9.
Burrowing in to number 9 in the countdown is an extreme eater capable of bringing down the house. To sniff out this homewrecker, you need to bring in the experts. This dog has been trained to detect the animal that could be chewing away right under your feet. No building is safe from the insatiable appetite of the termite. It can literally eat you out of house and home. It's estimated that for every human on the planet, there is more than half a ton of termites, and they're all busily gnawing at wood. In the wild, termites are nature's demolition crew. Their job is to search out dead, decaying trees and dispose of them. Even the tallest trees can be devoured by termites because there are just so many of them. One African termite queen can give birth to 30,000 babies every day. All those termites are fine in the wild, but we get upset when they confuse the dead wood of the forest with the dead wood in our homes. Every year in the United States alone, these miniature homewreckers are responsible for more than $1 billion worth of damage. Just one colony has been shown to eat over 150 feet of wooden boards in a year. At that rate, 10 colonies would completely demolish a house in about 7 years. But termites aren't the only things that can eat houses. Some kids can as well. Once upon a time, Hansel and Gretel were saved from starvation thanks to a gingerbread cottage in the woods. But today, there is a child that eats real houses. Ben Thatcher looks like any other 2-year-old. But he's been eating his mother out of house and home, literally. Ben is a human termite. He's been chewing on every wooden surface in the house and driving his mother crazy. A diet of wood may be good for termites, but not for 2-year-old boys. Lots of children put things in their mouths, but Ben has taken it to the extreme, which is why his worried mother sought the help of child psychologist Sandra Scott.
Children are very inquisitive. It's part of their learning process. And one of the things they do when we have lots of nice sensory bounces into the mouth. You know, what does it taste like? What's it feel like? And they learn an awful lot. So a child just putting things in their mouth or discovering they quite like the sensation of something, that in within itself is completely within the normal spectrum.
Ben's family hope that he'll outgrow this potentially dangerous diet, and so do the neighborhood trees. The reason most people don't eat trees is that humans can't digest the cellulose in wood. But then, neither can termites. So how do termites manage to eat so much of something they can't actually digest? The answer is simple. They invite friends in for dinner. Termites can eat wood because their intestines are full of tiny critters called protozoa. These miniature food processors produce an enzyme that breaks down the wood into a digestible meal for the termites. So the protozoa get free room and board, and the termites get to eat as much wood as they want. Without their bacterial buddy, this is one extreme eater that could starve to death, even with a full stomach.
We've sat down to dinner with the first two contenders. But coming up, we need an animal that really digs its deadly diet. And which bird has discovered that dining on dirt can't hurt? Find out next on Animal Planet's The Most Extreme. Number 8.
The next contender in our countdown of extreme eaters can be found on a riverbank in South America. The macaw flies in at number 8 because it's found an extreme way to lick a poisonous problem. Every day, macaws eat clay, lots of clay. A parrot can eat 1/10 of its body weight each day, which is about the weight of a hamburger made of mud. For macaws, there's nothing strange about eating clay. It's both an appetizer and an antidote, for these birds are being poisoned. Macaws love eating seeds. The trouble is that many tropical plants don't like having their seeds stolen. That's why plants fill their seeds with incredibly poisonous alkaloids and tannins. It's a great defense, but it doesn't stop the macaw. Researchers believe that by eating clay, the parrot has found an antidote to the poisons. It's thought that the minerals in the clay bind with the seed's toxic substances, neutralizing the poison so that it passes harmlessly through the bird's digestive system. But if you thought that eating clay was just for the birds, think again. In Santa Monica, California, naturopathic physician Brian Retker believes that we could learn a lot from the macaw. But we don't have to visit a muddy riverbank. This homeopathic pharmacy stocks a most unusual remedy. Could a teaspoon of clay keep the doctor away? The theory is that, just like the macaw, when this special bentonite clay passes through our body, it absorbs impurities like heavy metals and pesticides that we're exposed to every day. And some tests have shown that clay may have other beneficial effects.
Well, they took some bacteria and they put it in a beaker and grew it, and they put bentonite clay in that beaker. There was water in the beaker, and within 90 to 120 minutes it removed almost 100% of all the bacteria that was in there was adsorbed into the clay and no longer present in the liquid. So it has tremendous properties to absorb toxins. Bon appetit. Good.
If just 1 teaspoon of clay works wonders for us, just imagine the benefits for a macaw. They can eat up to 20 teaspoons of clay every day. But if you find the macaw's diet a little hard to swallow, get ready for some serious indigestion when you see what's on the menu for our next extreme eater.
So far, we've dined out on dirt, snacked on cellulose, and lunched on leaves. But coming up, what kind of parrot only eats underwater? Find out next on Animal Planet's The Most Extreme. Number 7.
The next contender in our countdown of extreme eaters is one animal that takes mealtimes very seriously.
Are you having a good time, Grandpa? Don't bother me. I'm busy.
We've already seen birds eating chunks of clay, but there's another parrot that likes its food rock hard. And if you think that sounds a little fishy, you're right, because the next parrot is actually the parrotfish. It gets its name because its front teeth are fused together like a parrot's beak. The parrotfish is number 7 in the countdown because it uses its beak to break off tiny pieces of stony coral. The skeleton of reef-building corals is as hard as rock and about as appetizing. But a parrotfish will eat up to 4,000 mouthfuls of rock every day. It grinds up the coral using specialized teeth in the back of its throat, for it's not after the rock, but the animals that made it. The corals you see on the reef are actually houses for thousands of tiny animals. Looking like miniature sea anemones, they use their tiny tentacles to feed on plankton drifting past in the water. Coral is actually a living rock, and it's the cells of these coral polyps that are food for the parrotfish. Just as you can't make an omelet without breaking eggs, you can't eat polyps without getting a beak full of rock. That's why every day, parrotfish can chew their way through 6 pounds of rock. While most people could never stomach such an extreme diet, it could tempt the taste buds of one Lithuanian woman. This is the house of a human parrotfish. When Stanislava Montvelina pops out to get her lunch, she doesn't go to a supermarket. Stanislava likes to eat dirt. We may think that eating dirt is kind of, well, dirty. But eating earth is far more common than you'd expect. Surveys have found that as many as 50% of adult women in rural areas of the American South had eaten at least 2 ounces of dirt in the previous 2 weeks. Some think they're satisfying a craving for minerals lacking in their normal diet. However, human parrotfish face real dangers because eating the wrong type of dirt can actually cause malnutrition. Real parrotfish have no such problems because all the rock they eat passes straight through them and comes out as fine white sand. Each year, a parrotfish can produce a ton of coral sand. So the next time you're on vacation in the tropics, just remember that you're sitting on lovely white parrotfish droppings.
Number 6.
Some extreme eaters can be truly horrific.
Strange creatures inundating our world, twisting the emotions of women, distorting our men. Join the hunt for the hiding place of terror. Find the breeding place of these globs of destruction. It's an adventure that'll burst your blood vessels with suspense.
Horror movies have thrived on our nightmares about being eaten alive. But there's one animal that's never made it onto the big screen. Yet it lives in our beds and eats more of us than any other creature on Earth. Say hello to the dust mite. It's so small that you can't see it without a microscope. It's lucky the mites are so tiny, since we spend a third of our lives in bed. That means we spend a third of our lives next to 2 million dust mites that can live in our mattresses. These 8-legged scavengers are number 6 in the countdown because every night they feast on our bodies. Dust mites eat our skin, and each day we produce an incredible number of skin cells for them to eat. In the next 5 seconds, you will lose more than 4,000 skin cells. It's perfectly natural. It's part of your body's defense system for you to shed more than 1 million dead skin cells every hour. But it means that in just one day, the amount of skin shed by the world's human population would fill a 4-story house. 80% of the dust you see floating in a sunbeam is actually flakes of dead skin. And this is food for the dust mites that live in your bed. Just like any animal, what goes in must come out. And what comes out of a dust mite is a pellet of digested skin. Each day, about 20 of these tiny pellets join the piles of dust mite carcasses and cast off skins that accumulate in your bed. So tonight, when you go to bed, take another look at your pillow. If it's more than a couple of years old, about 10% of its weight will be from dust mites and their droppings. So let's give thanks to the dust mite. For without this extreme eater removing all those dead skin cells, just imagine how many little bits of your nearest and dearest you'd be inhaling each day.
The dust mite may have a flaky sense of taste, but it's still only number 6 in the countdown. Because still to come is a little fish that just loves eating big fish. And which beetle has a real potty mouth? Find out next on Animal Planet's The Most Extreme.
But there's another fish that eats sharks for breakfast. No fish is safe from the tiny teeth of the cleaner fish. These little fish with big appetites are number 5 in the countdown because they eat other fish. And incredibly, the fish let them. They're possibly the bravest fish in the world because cleaner fish boldly go where no fish have gone before, often right into the jaws of death. As their name suggests, cleaner fish groom other fish by eating their decaying skin and parasites. Scientists on the Great Barrier Reef found a single cleaner can eat 1,200 parasites in a single day, having serviced more than 2,500 fish. So while it may be a lousy job, it seems there's no shortage of clients. as Paul Clarkson from California's Aquarium of the Pacific explains.
It's a bit of a fish car wash, actually. There will be certain areas of the reef where the cleaner fish will set up. The other animals will come into that section, and that will be kind of a no-eating zone where the larger fish won't actually eat these smaller fish. They'll allow them to approach and clean them at those particular stations.
Clients hang motionless, spreading their fins to allow cleaners access into those hard-to-reach places. Cleaner fish are number 5 in the countdown because they don't just chew on fishes. They'll clean up any skin in the neighborhood, including our own. In this Turkish spa, there's something fishy going on. People with skin conditions like eczema and psoriasis have come here to be nibbled on by 3 types of cleaner fish. There's a striker to eat the patient's flaky skin, a sucker to draw blood, and a healer who uses saliva to dress the wound. After 2 weeks of fish therapy, the results are said to be miraculous. For when it comes to getting under our skin, nothing does it better than the cleaner fish.
Number 4.
Elephants have extremely big appetites, which is why every day an adult elephant produces over 300 pounds of dung. Disposing of all this dung is a big job, but it's no trouble for the animal that's rolling in to number 4 in the countdown. The dung beetle, nature's walking waste disposal unit. A steaming pile of fresh dung can attract up to 1,600 beetles, and these extreme eaters can remove it all in less than 2 hours. We may think that dung is distasteful, but for these beetles, there's fierce competition for the best bits. What can't be eaten on the spot is rolled into a rough ball to become tasty takeout. Dung beetles hide their leftovers in underground larders. It may be hard for us to imagine that a ball of dung could be this desirable, but the world is full of dung nappers. The victorious beetle has another reason for burying this precious food ball. There's nothing like a ball of dung to make a safe, if somewhat smelly, nursery. In here, the baby beetle can grow up surrounded by its pre-digested food. For most people, a mouthful of dung would make you want to spit, especially if you're in London. It's an unusual place to find antelope dung, but then these are unusual people who put dung in their mouths. But unlike the dung beetle, they don't swallow, they spit. This is the ancient African sport of dung spitting. For the winners, there's a prize, a kiss, and a much-needed breath mint. But thankfully, the smell of fresh droppings is a real turn-on for the hard-working dung beetle. Could you imagine the mess if these extreme eaters ever lost their appetite for dung?
So far, we've seen bugs rolling poo, fish that can chew, and mites eating you. But coming up, who'll eat this tasty treat? Find out next on Animal Planet's The Most Extreme. Number 3.
In this room is the next contender in our countdown of extreme eaters. It's not biological educator Dave Ryherd, but it is the most poisonous animal on the planet. Hiding away at number 3 in the countdown is an animal with such an extreme diet that it can produce a poison 25 times more lethal than cobra venom. Surely you'd have to be crazy to go anywhere near poison dart frogs.
Now in the wild, I would not want to pick one of these little guys up because their skin secretions are so toxic they can be absorbed right into my skin without being bitten, and they're powerful enough to kill a grown man.
Dave is in no danger because these frogs were raised in captivity. To find poisonous poison dart frogs, you need to travel to the jungles of South America. Poison dart frogs are number 3 in the countdown because they make use of a deadly diet. Here, it seems you really are what you eat. In the wild, these frogs eat ants. Somehow they convert the highly toxic alkaloids in ant venom into the poison they store in their skin. But frogs are not the only ones eating insects. In your lifetime, you can expect to eat a pound of bugs. That's because insects like eating the same things we do, and sometimes they can get caught up in the process of food manufacture. Because of the way we process our food, most of us will never recognize the insects that end up on our kitchen table. But fear not. In the United States, the FDA is looking out for you. By law, you'll never find more than 30 insect eggs in a pot of tomato paste, 20 maggots in a can of mushrooms, or a block of chocolate that has more than 80 insect fragments. So the next time you feel an annoying tickle when you swallow, the chances are high that it's not a frog in your throat.
Oh, dear. Oh.
Unlike us, this is one frog that loves swallowing insects, because without its deadly diet, this extreme eater is just another pretty amphibian.
Number 2.
It's not easy being a meerkat. This little African mongoose lives in one of the harshest environments on Earth, the Kalahari Desert. The meerkat is number 2 in the countdown because it lives in a land full of dangers, especially in its deadly diet. Just finding something to eat can take most of the day, especially when you have to keep your eyes peeled for dangers from above. Every mealtime, meerkats can face much bigger dangers than a martial eagle. Meerkats are number 2 in the countdown because they just love eating scorpions. Eating such a deadly diet requires some special behaviors. The first thing to do is to get rid of that venomous sting. Meerkats are number 2 in the countdown because even if they get stung, they've developed a certain amount of immunity to scorpion venom. A useful tool when you eat one of the most venomous animals on the planet. Most people would find a scorpion a little hard to swallow. But would you find it more appetizing if it were dipped in chocolate? Desert scorpions become dessert scorpions at one of the most unusual candy stores in the world. Hot Licks of Pismo Beach, California manufactures the only candy apples on the planet where the worms are on the outside. Ten years ago, Larry Peterman started putting tequila worms in tequila-flavored lollipops. What started off as a gimmick is now a flourishing business. After all, there's no reason why we can't eat bugs.
Insects have a lot of protein and carbohydrates, good stuff, you know, it actually is a very good food for you. Not too long ago in the Bosnian War, when a pilot was downed, he lived on insects. And people all around the world have been eating insects for years. Our Western culture doesn't appreciate them as much as other cultures do.
A meerkat doesn't need a chocolate coating to sweeten its poisonous prey. And yet, not even a meal of scorpion venom is as deadly as the diet of the most extreme eater in the countdown.
We've seen the 9 contenders. They're the best of the best. Only one animal is a more extreme eating machine. It's number 1, and it's coming up next on Animal Planets. Number 1.
The number 1 most extreme eater in the countdown has the world's deadliest diet. Deadly and disgusting. Rotting flesh contains dangerous bacteria like cholera and anthrax. When dealing with these killer bugs, you have to take extreme precautions. After all, botulism bacteria produce the most lethal substance on the planet. Just 1 part per trillion is enough to kill you. So it's no wonder that humans are paranoid about rotting flesh. At the first sign of death and decay, we leave food well alone. But one animal eats the most lethal substances on the planet like candy. Soaring in to number 1 in the countdown is the vulture. Thanks to its incredible nose, a vulture can literally smell death a mile away. And something that stinks to high heaven is a sure sign that dinner is served. The vulture is #1 in the countdown because it can eat rotting flesh that would kill other animals. That's because the vulture has a stomach of steel. The vulture's stomach acids are so strong that they'll destroy almost all bacteria. Biologists have also discovered that the nervous system of the turkey vulture is resistant to botulism, and its immune system is powerful enough to deal with most bacterial toxins. There is one thing that not even a vulture would touch. At Sideshows by the Seashore at Coney Island, this man is cooking up something special. Meet the amazing, blazing Tyler Fire.
For the children watching this, and for the adults who like to act like children watching this, don't try this at home. Fire eating is the big act. It's the exciting act. It's the one that everyone wants to learn and to get in on, and it is a lot of fun to perform. There is not a trick to fire eating. Legions of people throughout the world are convinced that it's cold fire, it's trick fire, it's canned fire of some kind. And then there are people that say, oh, well, it's that special gel that you put on your mouth beforehand. And I tell you, there are a lot of days I wish that were true. But if there were, in fact, such a burn-proof, flame-proof gel, firemen wouldn't have to wear yellow suits anymore. So while it's not a trick, there is a technique to fire eating. There's a way to control and manipulate the fire that keeps it from actually burning the flesh.
Vultures may not eat fire, but they do enjoy a good barbecue. Cooked, raw, or rotting, vultures will eat any flesh. A diet this disgusting is enough to make you sick, and it can even make a vulture throw up. But that's only because it's eaten so much that it needs to lighten the load so it can get off the ground. With table manners like this, it's no wonder that when it comes to eating, the vulture really is the most extreme.
Next on King of the Jungle, Terror Strikes.
This is probably the scariest thing I've ever done.
When a screen test with a Bengal tiger goes terribly wrong. King of the Jungle, hosted by Jeff Corwin. Up next, only on Animal Planet.
Are you a